Golden sunlight poured across the Marakili plains like honey spilled on the land. The tall grasses rippled in the breeze, and birds coasted silently in the warm updrafts. As the African sun neared the edge of the sky, the park began to fall into that soft, breathless hush before night. Cabello adjusted the strap on his rifle and climbed into the ranger truck. His shift was over, a routine sunset patrol, same as always. He radioed in his final coordinates, then set off down the ridge trail that curved toward camp. But 20 kilometers east, away from the ranger roads and human noise, a lion pride moved through the golden light. 6 lions, 5 females with coats like sand and fire, and 1 male, broad-shouldered, majestic, his mane blackened with age and dust. He walked slightly ahead of them, not aggressive, just certain. He was the center around which they orbited. They passed a herd of wildebeest who glanced up, wary but not panicked. This was not a hunt. This was an evening walk through territory the pride had ruled for years. Then, the male lion paused. His nose twitched, a scent foreign to him. He turned left toward the tree line. The lionesses stopped, confused. One let out a soft growl. The male moved forward, curious. There, half hidden by dry leaves, was raw meat, hanging from a twisted branch. A trap. He stepped forward, and the moment his paw hit the earth, the world snapped shut. Crack! A hidden steel-jawed trap exploded upward, clamping around his front leg. His roar tore across the valley like thunder. Birds scattered from the trees. The lion collapsed, writhing in pain, claws tearing the dirt. Blood sprayed the grass. The pride rushed to him. They surrounded him in a loose circle, confused, growling at the invisible enemy. The youngest lioness pawed at the trap, then yelped at the cold steel. The others paced frantically, watching the male thrash, then weaken. Night fell. The male lion stopped struggling, his eyes wide, breathing shallow, leg bleeding onto the soil. The lionesses did not leave. They lay down beside him, tails curled toward his body. One licked his ear, another lay her head across his flank. They stayed there, still and silent, through the black night. Far away, Cabello's truck rattled over stones. He turned off the radio, listened to the night, and somewhere, faint, carried on the wind, he thought he heard something. A distant roar. Short, painful, then nothing. He frowned. The wheel turned slightly in his hands. He adjusted course, not knowing that a pride of lions, and something more, was waiting in the dark. Night blanketed Marakili National Park in silence. The stars blinked overhead like ancient eyes watching the land below. Grass swayed gently under a wind that carried the smell of dust, blood, and something older. Grief. The lionesses did not leave. They had curled around their male like sentinels, silent, loyal, unmoving. Each one rested differently, one with her head near his flank, another lying across from his face. Her golden eyes locked to his even as his began to drift. The trap was merciless. Its metal jaws were dug deep into his leg, crusted with dry blood. The lion's once majestic body trembled with each shallow breath, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest now uneven, like the wind had forgotten how to carry him. But they stayed, all 5. Every few minutes one of them would stand, sniff the wind, growl low, just enough to warn away unseen dangers. Then she would return, lay down beside him again. Not a single one tried to hunt, not even when hunger clawed at their bellies. Not a single one ventured off. In the wild, that kind of waiting is rare. It defied instinct, it defied survival. But it didn't defy love, because love was all that remained. By morning, the dew clung to their fur like tears. The lionesses blinked slowly in the grey light. The male's breathing had grown slower, shallower. His paw twitched now and then. Not in rage, but in pain he couldn't voice. Vultures circled overhead. The youngest lioness growled and snapped at the sky. The birds kept their distance. Even they seemed to understand this pride was not surrendering this lion yet. Cabello, meanwhile, drove along the southern ridge, eyes tired from routine. But his mind wasn't still. The memory of that single roar the night before clung to him. He didn't hear it clearly, but he felt it. Not a hunting roar, not a mating call. Not territorial, it was different, wounded, like something crying out for the world to answer. He pulled off the trail, stepped out of the truck. Birdsong filled the air. A soft breeze moved through the trees. Nothing unusual, but something in his gut tugged at him. He reached into the glove box and pulled out his binoculars, scanned the horizon. He saw nothing but endless grass. But he wasn't convinced. So he walked. Back at the grove, the lionesses stirred. The second youngest stood and padded softly to the male's side. She licked his ear. No response. She licked it again. He groaned. Eyes fluttered open for a second, then closed again. The lionesses circled tighter, pressing against his fur as if their bodies could lend him strength. And then, movement, a rustle in the bush. Ears perked, 5 heads turned sharply. Footsteps, not lion-human. Cabello stepped out of the grass slowly, rifle slung low, boots crunching dry earth. He saw them immediately, a full lion pride, and a massive male, down, bleeding, caught in something. The blood drained from his face. He froze. Then he realized something else. They weren't attacking, they weren't growling. They were watching, not him, but the lion, and they didn't move to stop him. His breath caught. He lowered his rifle, stepped once, twice, toward the circle of bodies. None of them growled. None of them rose. One simply turned her eyes to him. Not a threat, not a plea, just trust. Cabello crouched slowly. His eyes moved to the trap, then to the lion, then back to the pride. He whispered aloud, not knowing why. "Okay. I'll help him, but you need to let me in." The wind stilled. The air thickened. Cabello stood just 20 feet from the pride. He didn't breathe. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink. 5 lionesses, all upright now. They didn't snarl, they didn't charge, but their eyes locked to him. Golden, unreadable, primal, the kind of gaze that stripped a man of his ego and asked only one question: predator or kin? Cabello slowly raised both hands, palms out, fingers trembling. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't reach for his radio. "I'm not here to hurt him," he whispered, even though he knew they wouldn't understand. But maybe, somehow, they would. The lionesses didn't move. He took one step forward, then another. No growl, no tail twitch, just that heavy sacred silence. The male lion lay in the center, still breathing but barely. The trap had mangled the flesh around his foreleg. Purple-black bruising had spread down to his shoulder. Each breath he took was shallow, wheezing, but his eyes flicked toward Cabello just once, just long enough for the ranger to know he was still aware, still there, still alive. Cabello knelt slowly in the grass about 10 feet from the lion. He didn't approach yet. Instead, he sat cross-legged, quiet, still. He let the wind move between them. He let the lions see him. Not a threat, not an enemy, just a man, breathing, waiting. The lionesses watched. 10 minutes passed, then 15, one by one. The lionesses returned to the male's side, watching Cabello, yes, but no longer standing guard. Then finally, the youngest of them stepped back slightly, a subtle invitation. Cabello moved forward, crawling now, slow, deliberate. He stopped just beside the male lion. The scent hit him hard. Blood, infection, dust, fur, and something ancient, a smell the ancestors would have known. He glanced at the lion's paw. The trap was brutal. A steel-jawed clamp, the kind poachers favored. Cheap, untraceable, cruel. The lion had tried to pull free. The metal was bent. The skin was torn open. The bone. Cabello prayed it wasn't broken. He opened his pack, hands shaking, pulled out his knife, a leather strap, saline solution, a gauze pad. Not enough, not nearly enough, but all he had. He reached forward, with one hand hovering over the trap. The male lion growled, low guttural warning. Cabello froze. "I know," he whispered. "It hurts." He kept his hand there, still, inches away. The lion blinked, and Cabello saw it. That flicker of recognition. Not memory, not logic, just surrender, permission. He touched the trap. The first thing he did was wash the wound, slow streams of saline over torn muscle. The lion flinched. One of the lionesses stood, alert. Cabello didn't flinch. He spoke gently, like speaking to a frightened child. "Shh. It's okay. You've got them. You're not alone." He tied the leather strap above the injury, a crude tourniquet. The lion's breath hissed out through clenched teeth. Then Cabello got to work on the trap. It wasn't easy. His knife couldn't cut the core wire. His hands were slick with blood. He tried twisting the latch, but it was rusted shut. He wiped sweat from his forehead. Blood smeared his cheek. The lion watched him. One lioness moved behind him. Cabello could feel her breath on his neck. Still, he kept working. He pulled the tension rod, braced it under his boot, and finally, with a jarring clang, the jaws opened. "Fobtu-e," lion roared, not loud but full roar, wounded alive. Cabello fell back into the dirt, chest heaving. The lion jerked its paw back, then collapsed again in exhaustion. The trap lay open beside them, bent, bloody, defeated. The lionesses rushed in, not at him, but to the male. They sniffed the wound, they licked his face, they curled their bodies around him. Closer than before, Cabello sat a few feet away, frozen, breathless. He had done it, he had stepped into the wild and been allowed to walk out. But it wasn't over, not yet. He reached into his bag again, drew out the last of his gauze and antiseptic. He knew he had only one chance to clean and wrap the wound before infection set in. But this would be the real test. He crawled forward again, toward the injured paw. The lionesses didn't stop him, they watched, as if they knew. He cleaned the gash gently, wiping the blood, rinsing the dirt. Then he wrapped the gauze in 2 tight loops. The lion flinched but didn't pull away, and Cabello, he dared to breathe again. He sat back and stared at the lion, scarred, majestic, alive. And then the lion met his eyes. Not briefly, but deeply, like they were the only 2 beings left on earth. Cabello whispered, "You have no idea how lucky you are." The lion blinked, and for the first time, it felt like maybe he did. Silence. Not the kind that comes from emptiness, the kind that comes after something holy. Cabello sat in the dirt, no more than 5 feet from a wild male lion, his arms streaked with dried blood, hands trembling, eyes wide. Around him, the 5 lionesses remained close, bodies relaxed but alert, eyes flicking between Cabello and their wounded king. The wind had picked up slightly, and with it came a shift in the air, something subtle but powerful. Respect. The kai. Lion stirred, his massive paw flexed under the fresh bandage, muscles twitching. Then, with a low grunt, he began to rise. Every hair on Cabello's neck stood on end. The lion got halfway up, favoring his uninjured legs, panting, and then he stood fully, wobbly, uncertain, but upright. Cabello didn't move. He sat completely still, arms at his sides, spine straight. If the lion lunged, there was nothing he could do, but he didn't. The lion turned toward him and stared. Time froze. The wind paused. In that single shared moment, something unspoken passed between man and beast. Not language, not instinct. Something older, recognition, a warrior seeing another. Cabello lowered his gaze, not out of fear, out of reverence. The lion blinked once, then turned away. He limped toward the other lionesses, who immediately moved in to support him. One nuzzled his face. Another walked beside him, shoulder brushing against his mane. The entire pride turned away from Cabello and began to move, slowly, silently, into the tall grass. But then something strange happened. After a few steps, the male stopped. He turned back. So did the lionesses. They stood there, all 6 of them, facing Cabello once more. Not growling, not warning, just watching, like guardians, like family, like they were waiting. Cabello stood slowly. He stepped forward once, then stopped. The lionesses didn't move. One of them, the oldest, let out a low chuff, short, soft, a lion's version of acknowledgement. Then they vanished one by one into the gold of the afternoon. Gone. Cabello stood alone now, sweat clinging to his skin, sun beating down on his back, and in the dust at his feet, 6 paw prints pointed toward the horizon. He reached for his radio. It crackled to life. "Unit 3, do you copy?" He pressed the button, still watching the trail. "Copy," he said. "I found something. I'll explain when I return." Back at camp, no one believed him. "You did what?" His partner laughed. "You freed a lion? With what, your hands?" "They didn't eat you?" another ranger asked. Cabello just smiled and didn't answer. But that night he sat on his bunk, pulled out a blank page in his notebook, and wrote only one line. "They let me in." Days passed, then a week. Life at Marakili moved on. Antelope crossed paths, giraffes stretched their necks toward sunlit trees, and rangers rotated shifts like clockwork. But something was different. It started with a sighting. Ranger Dineo radioed, "In from the northern plateau. Lions near the ranger trail again. Same pride, they're not hunting, just sitting." Then another call, then another. Each time it was the same. The pride wasn't stalking, wasn't moving aggressively. They were just there, still watching and always facing the road. First, Cabello thought it was coincidence, but on his 3rd patrol since the rescue, he crested a low ridge, and there they were, all 6. 5 lionesses, sitting calmly in the grass, and behind them, standing proud despite his healing leg. The male. His golden mane caught the breeze like dry wheat. He didn't growl, didn't move. He just watched Cabello's truck, like he was waiting, like he remembered. Cabello parked and stepped out, slowly, cautiously. The lions didn't move. He stood there, eyes locked with the male. 10 seconds passed, then 20. Then the lion gave a slow, low chuff and turned away. The pride followed, disappearing into the long grass. Back at base, word spread. "You're making friends with lions now," one ranger joked. Cabello only smiled. He didn't offer explanations. He didn't need to. The rangers began calling them Cabello's golden shadows. One morning, Cabello left early. He drove out to the southern ridge with a parcel of meat. Not bait, not protocol. A gift. He stopped at a large flat rock he'd seen the lions near before. He stepped out, set the parcel down gently, then backed. Away 20 minutes passed, then movement. From the brush, one lioness emerged. She didn't touch the meat. She walked up to it and sat down, watching, as if to say, "We see you. We remember." By the end of the 2nd week, every patrol Cabello took was followed, not close, not threatening, just dirati golden shapes moving between the trees, always quiet, always aware. One ranger called it madness, another called it magic. Cabello just wrote another line in his notebook. "They don't follow me. They walk with me." The days became rhythm patrol. In the morning, sunset by the ridge, a quiet offering on the rock, a silent visit from the shadows. Cabello had stopped trying to explain it, to the other rangers, to himself. There was no protocol in the ranger handbook for what he had become part of. You don't write rules for legends, you just live them. One evening, he stood by the truck at dusk, the sky behind him smeared with tangerine and violet. The land had gone still. Then rustling they came, all 6. The lionesses flanked the male, who walked now with steady, quiet strength. His leg still bore a scar, but his stride no longer faltered. They stood in formation, not threatening, not curious, present. One lioness approached the rock where Cabello had once placed the meat. She sniffed the air, then lay down beside it. Another joined her. Soon all 5 were seated, calm, royal, eternal. The male remained standing and looking toward Cabello. Cabello didn't move, didn't raise a camera, didn't speak. This wasn't something to document. This was something to witness. After a long pause, the lion gave a single short chuff. Then he turned, and they walked away. Not in fear, not in retreat, but in reverence. Cabello stayed there until night swallowed the sky. He looked at the empty space where they had been, and knew this was goodbye. Not forever, but for now. The bond had been forged, the respect had been paid, and the lions, they had shown the world what most never see, that sometimes to be trusted by the wild is the wild's highest gift.